Hi, I'm the Sad Panda. This is going to be the 10th episode of my series, I Read This, Should You? Where I give you a review on a book, manga, or web novel that I've read, and you decide whether or not to read it based on the review I give. Of course, I'll only touch on the first 100 chapters or so as to not spoil everything, but this episode is going to be my first book. This episode is going to be on Beyond the Aquila Rift by Alistair Reynolds. Before I explain what the story's about, I want to talk to the people that are going to be like, I think I've seen this on Love, Death, and Robots. You did, because it was a book and then it was adapted into beautiful, stunning animation on Love, Death, and Robots. If you ever watched Netflix, you've probably seen it on there. It's one of the first couple episodes, or I think it's one of the first couple episodes in that series. After watching that, I was like, man, that's a good story. And I looked it up and I was like, it's a book? And I was like, no way, no shot, it's a book. So I went into my iBooks and I found an audiobook of it. It's only an hour long. And I was like, all right, listen to it. And by golly, okay, one of my favorite science fiction stories I've listened to / read / watched. So the story basically is set in the far future, and there's these, I'm going to call them gates, but they're essentially used for interstellar travel, like between two parts of the universe. So even if we went at light speed, I don't know if you know, but even if we went at light speed to go to our closest galaxy or whatever, it would take like 2 million years. Or to go from one side of our universe to the other side, it would take like 1,000 years or whatever. But these gates let you go from one spot to another spot in, instead of years or instead of months, days, weeks. And it's a very interesting topic. And so the story takes place following our captain of this like huge like frigate is named Tom. Thomas Grundlampet. I don't know. No one calls him that. Everyone just calls him Tom. The story takes place, they're about to go through the rift, and their main like technician says that there's some calibration issues that they have to fix, and they have to they wanted to get out of the station that they're in as fast as possible because they're on like the end of their run. So in this world, there's people that pilot these like huge frigates, and they're essentially like big boats. They're like huge boats with tons of cargo. That's like the whole idea. Just like if you were to ship something from like China to America, it's the same kind of thing. It's just much bigger and in space. So Tom is like, all right, well, fix it and do the best you can to fix that so we can get out of here as soon as possible. And he ends up like doing some calculations and stuff, and it turns out that the frigate in front of them is left already, and there's a space, so they could leave now and they could get home maybe a few days early. And so he talks to his like technician, and he's like, well, we could go, but I just need to make sure that this is all calibrated. And he's like, well, it should be fine, because like in this world, there's like advanced calculations, and there's these people that like in their dreams get like hear this voice and like this language, and they can understand the algorithms in these machines, because these rifts aren't made by humans. They were found by humans and used by humans. So some people have the ability to like read the calculations and the coordinates and all this stuff, and it's not everyone. Some people have dreams where they hear it. They like the code calls to them or whatever. That's one of the ways it's described in the book. He's like, all right, well, we should be fine. And they're like the coordinate lady, she's like, yeah, it should be fine. I checked the coordinates and we have this like path that would get us the most direct route. And he's like, okay, fine. So they prepare for their transit back to the part of the universe which Earth resides, because they're going home. They have to get in these like pods that fill up with like a liquid, like a cryo sleep almost. And like by the time it covers your face, you're already asleep, and like it doesn't affect your breathing or anything. It's like a fluid that keeps you healthy and stuff through even long periods of time. And so Tom is the last to go to sleep. He makes sure every other part of his crew is in their cryopods sleeping, and the process is like correct, and there's no like final miscalculations or anything. And he's like, all right, bam, we're good. So he goes in his cryopod and he falls asleep. Next thing he knows, he wakes up, because just like you sleep in real life, you fall asleep and then you wake up. There's like time in between, multiple hours in between, but you don't know how long it's been until you check the time. So he wakes up and there's flashing red lights, there's beeping, and there's sounds that you don't want to hear as a captain. So he immediately gets out of the pod, and the way he describes it, he says he feels like trash. And it always feels bad to get out of the pod after sleeping for, after not moving for a few weeks. It always feels bad, but this was worse than he's ever felt before. But he pushes through it as the captain. He's got to make sure everything's all right. He has to go make sure that the station that he's in knows that he's here. And it turns out he's not where he's supposed to be. So in the process of the rift sending you from one portal to another, there's like transit that you have to hit, and there's it's very specific. And just like in real life, the longer the distance, the more a single miscalculation matters. So like if you're going from like my house to my parents' house, there's only a couple miles away, it would be super easy to get the approximate direction. I could just be like, it's down that way. It's not that hard. But if you have to go from like Miami to like New York, right? It's a pretty far distance. And if you're in a plane, or if you're going from like Miami to Washington, not Washington, D.C., but Washington, it's a long distance. So if you miscalculate by a tiny bit, you could not be on course at all. And now imagine millions of light years. It's insane to think of a miscalculation. So that's the thing he's worried about. He's like, well, I hope that we haven't made any mistakes. So he gets a bunch of people like enter his ship from the station that his ship has ended up at, and it's like, oh, you're a little off course. He meets a lady there that he hasn't seen in a really long time. Her name is Greta. So it turns out like this Greta and Tom have a past history, like 10 years ago or something like that, like relative time, 10 years since they last met. They had like a fling. Now Tom is married and Greta wasn't married, and now Greta's married and he's married, and they don't talk about the like affair thing, and it's fine. But he sees Greta and he's like, wow, what a surprise to see you all the way out here. Because the odds of you meeting someone that you met on like some random star, some random planet, like 10 years later is astronomically small. So he's like, wow, what a surprise. But he gets over it really fast because the company that he works for has people that go back and forth all the time. So he checks the log and where he is, and he's like, oh man, we're way off course, but not like that bad. They're like a couple weeks like off course from what he can tell. But he doesn't have those dreams for the coordinates and stuff, so he doesn't know for sure. He's just like, I'm pretty sure. And so the Greta is like, well, that's not scare your crew or anything. You're only a little bit off course. It'll take a couple days to fix your ship because there was some damage to it when on re-entry, and then we can send you on your way. And he's like, yeah, that makes sense. No one wants to hear that they're losing their bonus because, on a delivery, if you make it fast enough, you get a bonus or whatever, but they won't get it. He's like, well, that's unfortunate, but I don't want to scare my crew and wake them up and then put them back to sleep in a week or whatever, or in a couple days. So he's just like, fine. So it turns out, like you find out later in the story, that they are not like a little bit off course, like a week or two. They are like years, hundreds of years off course. Like it turns out that there was a miscalculation, not due to any like human error, just that there's always been like the codes in the rift in the portal isn't like 100%. There's no such thing as 100% technology. So it's like 99.9999% it works every time. But that 0.0001%, it doesn't work. And it sends you somewhere that is at the edge of like the portal's range, which is massive. So Greta's like, well, I lied. You're not only a couple days off course. You are like 1,000 years off course, thousands of years off course. And she's like, I lied to you because it's a hard pill to swallow. And she's like, I've seen people that turn up here, I tell them the news, and 15 minutes later, we're cleaning up after their dead body because they kill themselves. Because that's something that in this world, no one wants to hear, that you are so far away from home that even if you turn around right now, this minute, and you go back, everything and everyone that you've ever known is dead. No shot. Like thousands of years has passed back on Earth compared to where you are now. So even if you were to go back, even if you could go back, which they can't, everyone you've ever known is dead. So it's a hard pill to swallow, and she didn't think he could handle it right away, so they spent like a couple days together, you know, they fell in love or whatever, they had relations, and it turns out that he's like, no way. And he's like, I want to know where I am for real. Because he finds out that this is, since she's lied to him about this thing, this so big thing, that like his wife is dead, his kids are dead, his family's gone. He's like, I need to know the truth. And she's like, I don't think you can handle the truth. I'm gonna be honest. And then he's like, well, who are you to tell me what I can and can't handle? She's like, I've seen it thousands of times. You are not the first. Like, and it turns out that she's not even human. She's a creature from like space that cares for lost souls like this. So she is like, this station is real, but she's like a creature that can manipulate your mind while you're asleep, and it can give you like a picturesque life, even if it's not the life you want. Because what she says, she's like, I do care about you, and I do care about everyone that comes here. And it turns out that she's like an interstellar like alien that like cares about the people that are scared and alone and lost, but she's so scary to look at that if you were to see her like physical body, like the creature's physical body, it will scar you for life. And so he's like, I need to see you. I need to see what you are for real. And she's like, well, okay, I'm not going to tell you that I'm not going to do it, but you just know that this will change your whole everything. And so he wakes up, and it turns out like he's super emaciated. So he's like super like underweight. He's like a giant beard. Like the pods of his like companions are like broken and they're dead inside. So he's like the only human left from his ship alive. And he sees like this creature, and she's like, hello. And he like passes out. And then the story essentially starts over again. And this is my favorite part of the whole story, is the fact that like the story starts over again by like he wakes up in the pod again, where he's like off course again, and he sees like Greta again. But it's, you know, like as the reader, you know that he's been through this before, but he doesn't know that. So it puts in perspective, how many times has he gone through the same exact realization, this same exact situation with this Greta, with this creature? Like, how many times has it been already? Like, because when he wakes up, he doesn't remember anything that happened previous. He like had, like in his mind, he's like, I had a dream that was kind of crazy, but you know, I'm in the pod. You know, you have crazy dreams sometimes, and it makes sense. So it's just it's mind-boggling how like scary that could be. Like how many times you could have done the exact same thing already and not known it. Like the human mind is very easily tricked. That's why scary movies are so scary. That's why like creepypasta and stuff like that are so frightening. It's because our minds will latch on to anything that seems like it could be real and like holds on to that. So like in this story, he's like, oh, well, we're just a little off course again. And like, he doesn't want to believe. His mind is like, no, that can't be true. There's no such thing as aliens. There's like, obviously, like he just doesn't believe it. But who knows, you know? And I love that about this story. I love it. And it's a sci-fi story. So, you know, I'm not going to explain sci-fi to you because obviously the people watching my videos know how to read. So I give this story for kind of realism, I give it like an 8, like a 9. It's pretty good. Like the mental gymnastics that Tom goes over, like with Greta, and he has to like wake up his like coordinate lady over and over again to try to get her to understand that they're far away from home, so far that everyone that they love is dead, but it turns out she's also dead. So he's talking to like a fragment of a memory of her, which is messed up. I absolutely adore it. And if you don't have time to sit and read it, there's a very good audiobook of it. It's an hour and 11 minutes. You can finish it in an hour and 11 minutes. There's like cuts in between. So honestly, if you skip those little, like there's like 10-second cuts, you could probably get that done in an hour and 5 minutes. Come on. It's worth it. It's worth your time. I promise. I promise. I promise. And thank everyone for watching my content and subscribing. We're at 14. Heck yeah, dude. I just want to say that it means a lot to me. You know, I started this and I didn't think that anyone wanted to listen to what I have to say, so it's nice that people do. So, thank you.